Greetings, nerdlings, and welcome back to That Nerd Mama Life. Excuse all this, current mood. Current mood. See that? Yeah, current mood. It's been that kind of day. Yes. As usual. Such is life. I'm looking like a hot mess and I don't even care. Mom life. So, today, this weird holiday, is National Tell a Story Day. And so I figured, let's tell a story. As most of you know, if you have not already seen it since it came out yesterday, or you're going to see it sometime this weekend, Avengers Endgame started yesterday, and people are all up in their feels about it. But it's also got nerds wondering, where did it all start? A lot of people will claim that the Marvel Universe started with Blade. That is not true. Totally 100% not true. The first theatrical film release that Marvel came out with was 1986's Howard the Duck. It was based on a comic book. It's a cult classic. And a little known fact about Howard the Duck is it was directed by Willard Huyck and produced by George Lucas. The same two people that brought you Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Kind of weird. I remember watching Howard the Duck when I was a kid. And it was one of those movies that, as a kid, I didn't get it. I didn't get the jokes. Watching it as an adult, I was shocked at how many dirty jokes there are in that movie. That I was like, did I really sit through this when I was a kid? How was I allowed to watch this? Speaking of Doom, speaking of Temple of Doom, we're going to go to Mount Doom. Amazon is taking us back to Mount Doom and Middle Earth. Apparently, they are releasing a series based off of the books and the movies, and spending a $1 billion price tag to bring us this series that's supposed to be released in a couple of years. Which brings us to our topic tonight. Books versus films. Everybody has feels about this subject. Even me. Most people will pit them against each other. That's the first thing most people do. Oh, well, the books are so much better. Or, oh, I've only seen the movies. And then go read the books and are like, what was left out of here? There's so much not in the films. Hi, Mandy. I'm one of them. Case in point, Lord of the Rings. I read the books first before I saw any of the movies. I loved the books. When I went to see the movies, I was pleased with the first one, the first Lord of the Rings movie. The Fellowship did a pretty good job of staying on task with the book. Return of the King, same way, pretty much followed along. There were, obviously they can't put everything in a film. The only one that I had problems with was The Two Towers. Simply because in The Two Towers, if you've read the books, you know that the part in the story where Treebeard and the Tree Ents come in, it's a hilarious section of the story. And I was really disappointed when they released the movie because that part of the film, that part of the book was so shrunk down that you really didn't get how funny it really was. Like in the books, my favorite part about it was the fact that they took several days to even like introduce everybody's name, and the hobbits were getting so upset. It's like, come on, why is it taking so long? This is an emergency. You guys need to speed it up. Well, we take our time. And it's like a whole section of the book that I really wish they would have added more to the movie. The Hobbit was pretty spot on. I was a little shaky when it came to them breaking it up into 3 movies, but I'm actually kind of glad they did that, because for me, The Hobbit needed to be told in almost its entirety. It's really a complex book. On the flip side of that, when it came to the Harry Potter books and the Harry Potter movies, I watched the movies first. And I was very pleased with the movies. I'm a huge fan of the movies. And then I read the books, and there's so much good stuff in the books that in order to adapt it to film, they had to shrink a lot and they had to adapt it, which is typically what they have to do. I mean, they only have, so many hours to capture the essence of the story. And of course, they have to leave parts out, or they have to rearrange them to where it still fits cohesively as a movie and still holds your attention. And I have no idea why my color on my screen keeps going weird. I think it's my lighting. I need better lighting. It's okay. Now for me, the question that I always ask people is, why are you pitting them against each other? Because you're not judging them based on their individual merits. You're not judging just the books by themselves. You're not judging the movies just by themselves. You're always trying to compare the two. And it's like the hint for the day, Stephen King said it best. You're trying to compare apples and oranges. They're both fruits, but they're completely different fruits. They're going to give you a different flavor. They're going to give you a different texture. I personally, when it comes to books and films that have been adapted, I try to judge them solely by themselves. Like, I enjoy the books and what that gives me. And then I enjoy the cinematic experience of how they've managed to still stay true to the story, but also keep you captivated and keep you coming back to the theater. I know, like, hardcore Star Wars fans, and I don't consider myself hardcore because I haven't read any of the novels. I haven't watched Clone Wars or any of like the spin-off cartoons or whatever. I've basically stuck to the films. And so I talk to hardcore Star Wars fans and like, oh, well, you have to watch Clone Wars in order to get this, or you have to read this or watch this in order to get why that's relevant in this movie or whatever. Case in point, Solo. When Darth Maul came back, I was like, what? How'd that happen? Because he died in the prequel. He died in the very first prequel. How'd that happen? And somebody who has seen the Clone Wars, the cartoon, they're like, oh, well, this is why. And I'm like, oh, well, I haven't seen those. So for me, not knowing why Darth Maul was there makes me want to go and watch the next Solo film, which they are planning on releasing another Solo film. And I'm hoping, as a moviegoer, I'm hoping that they explain what happened there. Like, how did he come back? Because he died way back in the Phantom Menace, and the Solo film was made after Darth Vader became Darth Vader. some, or, yeah. Yeah. It's been a long day. Don't at me. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm hoping to see, like, where they take that. How are they going to explain that to make it relevant to people who have only seen the movies, like me? I think, personally, whether you're writing a book or you're adapting it to film, it takes very different talents and very different forms of creativity. With books, you have to be so much more descriptive because you're trying to paint a picture in somebody's mind. As opposed to a film, a filmmaker is supposed to make it like bring that to life. To where it's not just an image in the head, it's an image on the screen that captivates audiences and wants to keep them coming back to see their films. So I honestly think that the old boxing match between books versus films should just be a total, it should be a draw. It should be a total, there's no winner, there's no loser. Because there's very different talent sets involved in books and in films. Just enjoy them for the experience it gives you. Don't sit and think, oh, well, I wish they'd done this differently and I wish they'd done that differently. Or they could have added this, they could have added that. Appreciate the work that these people have put into their novels or their movies. The time, the energy, the writer's blocks, the technical setbacks, and all that stuff. We tend to forget as moviegoers and as book enthusiasts that these people take a lot of time out of their lives to produce these for our entertainment. There are real life people having to sit down at a computer desk or on a movie set, and tons of time. Game of Thrones. George R.R. Martin hasn't even finished his novel series for Game of Thrones, yet he worked very closely with the producers and the directors of the show to make sure that they were able to still create the series and create something that was still close enough to his vision for the rest of his novels that it wouldn't throw fans so far off. Because he has made statements in interviews that the ending for this season of Game of Thrones is very similar to what he already has planned to wrap up the novel. Yes, there will be differences because, TV shows versus books that haven't even been written yet. So the producers of the show, the writers of the show, had to come up with something that would tie up all the loose ends that haven't even existed yet. That they're still in George R.R. Martin's mind. Speaking of Game of Thrones, I'm ready to be destroyed tomorrow. If anybody spoils it for me, because I have to watch it a little bit later than most people, the internet is dark and full of spoilers. I stay off social media as much as I can before I watch it. So, no spoilers. Lord of Light, protect me from spoilers. But yes, the old fight, they're both winners in my opinion. I still enjoy reading, I still enjoy watching films, and I always will continue to do so because I'm ready to see what somebody can bring to the table that will entertain me. And mad respect for writers and film producers, film directors, casts, crew, publishers, everybody who's involved in bringing entertainment to our lives That way we can do what we do, which is be entertained and able to have conversations with people. All it does is open up people to communicate and debate and connect over stuff that we love. Speaking of love, I love you, nerdlings. That's all I have for you today. As always, stay nerdy, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a good night.